give it a few moments, guys. Welcome to those that are already here. We'll just give it 30 seconds to a minute just to see if there's anyone trying to get in. Obviously, this is being recorded, but it is going to be going out to all our members. See, who doesn't want to talk about digital workflows? James is like,
Over there, salad.
Yeah, no, people keep the cameras off so they can eat the nice sandwiches and not make us jealous that we're not having our lunch. It's fine. I think I'm going to start, if that's okay, guys, then, because like I say, you know, we know that lots of people watch this and listen to it in their own time. We might get some people coming halfway, and that's absolutely fine. So welcome to an admin conversation. We are joined today by our wonderful sponsors, Hague. We've been working with Hague for quite a long time now. And as many of you know, we do like to partner up with people and businesses that actually really support practice managers. So we wanted to get the Hague guys to give us a bit of insight into digital workflow. It is something that everybody needs to be aware of, even if they're not using it at the moment. It's definitely something that should be a consideration of introducing into your practice. So I'm going to introduce you to James. James, are you happy to introduce you? Oh, sorry about that, guys. My phone's just gone. James is going to introduce everybody and give us a bit of an insight into what your guys' roles are, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us. We've so Hague has been sort of trading for almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years next year. We were founded on sort of from an engineering perspective, and it has evolved into sort of the sales and project team that we have now. We can sort of take a project, whether it be digital or a refurbishment, from sort of design stage right through to implementation of installing the kit and then pre-planned maintenance thereafter. So yeah, the business including interior design as well. So we've got a lot of experience in the building here. So we've got Artur to my second right. He's been with us for sort of 9 years, and he's our digital expert, assists with the planning of it, sort of the infrastructure for the OPG rooms, the digital workflow, and then installs them himself. And then the maintenance after, including dial-ins and the support side of things as well. Lee is our head of engineering and technical sales. He's got 14 years with Hague, and yeah, sort of heads up the engineering team, but then also the technical sales. So with CBCT, that is obviously a technical sale as such, so it would be a large part of that. And then myself, sales and projects director. I'm almost in my 20th year with Hague, and I have seen most sides of the business, but now it is sales and projects for that side of things.
Brilliant, thanks, James. I mean, obviously for those years, and obviously I've seen the landscape change massively over my time. I feel like we were a practice that kind of embraced digital workflows quite early on. I think we were one of 10 first ones to get an iTero. Back in the day, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, you know, we're amazing. And then slowly, you know, people started to catch on to how digital things can actually make enhance what, you know, the care that we're giving to our patients. I think some people think digital workflow sometimes initially as kind of the software that we use, you know, the automated diary systems and things, but actually it is within everything, so clinical as well as the admin side of things. We have lots of challenges in practice as practice managers, but from a digital workflow, what are you guys have started working with people very from Midlands up now as well as down south, haven't you? So you've got a really good insight into what the challenges are for practices. Will you tell me a little bit about that, James?
So the challenges within the practice. So we see a lot of outdated equipment. So you're coming in, you're looking at sort of OPGs that are 20 years old, still some that we're seeing film-based. So it's that transition from film-based OPGs to CBCT, for example. But then there are stepping stones in between. So some people don't want to do that big transition, so they might sort of have a stepping stone in between of the 2D OPG that may be then upgradable within a couple of years to CBCT. So a lot of people are sort of taking on in bite-sized chunks, which we're seeing quite a lot. Seeing inefficient processes. So if you are able to have the whole workflow in-house, there's obviously, you're avoiding lab fees, you're avoiding referrals, you'll manage. I think the public now want everything to be in-house. They don't want to be sent from pillar to post to go and get different things. They want it all to be handled by one company in-house, and that is the digital workflow from the start to finish, effectively.
Yeah. So do you feel that people come to you and go, I know I need to be doing this, I can do this better? Do they sometimes jump to like the whole hog, or is it something that you feel should be sort of staged?
Certainly, we're seeing it a little bit with squats, where they go the whole hog, because they've got a clear business plan of what they're looking to do for treatments, and within that business plan is the digital workflow, but it tends to be for practices that are pre-existing. It tends to be bite-sized chunks, so they might purchase CBCT and intraoral scanner, and then the next step might be the mill, and then the what am I saying?
3D printers.
Yeah, sorry, that's it. Yeah, 3D printers.
That's right.
Yeah. So but it tends to start with CBCT, scanner, and then through to the more lab technician side of things.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, practices have budgets and things like that, and you know, these items that we're talking about are definitely investments, but I know from working with lots of practices, when you've got to look at them as an investment that is going to give you a return on investment, don't you? I know the inefficiencies and the costs, you know, practices that understand it costs £180 per chair per hour before you've even seen a patient. If you suddenly have equipment that's meaning that you're having to cancel days and things, I mean, I know we're a massive practice, but I know if we close our practice for a day, we're losing £10,000 straight off. And I think this is where practices need to look at the bigger picture. And I know that you guys do help people to see those, you know, that it is an investment. But it's not just that, it's the patient experience as well. Like you said, it's the convenience for the patient. But also, you know, I think everyone can agree that we're all very precious about our time. Patients don't want to come back. They don't want to travel. They don't want to have to come back for a remake. They don't want to have an appointment cancelled. So it is looking at it more than it's not just a fancy new toy for the practice. It is like a practice management tool, isn't it? Artur, what other practice challenges do you see that seems to be, you know, the conversation that crops up all the time with you and your clients?
It's pretty much what you were hinting at. It's a lot of time wasted, a lot of people that don't really know the procedures in and out. And what James was touching on about either jumping in head first, getting everything digital. It's really good for squats because they have the heading, they know exactly what they want. And they might have come from different practices where they have been using segmented pieces of kit that don't really talk to each other properly. And so they choose a brand or an overflow of things that work. For smaller practices, what we find sometimes, especially with people that still are using traditional film, for instance, and they have no scanners or anything, a good place to start is usually the phosphor plate scanner or a direct capture device, like an RPG sensor, and that sort of eases you into the digital infrastructure and workflow. And it's a massive change in process, as you will know, and reduces costs in getting plates, which you don't really need to get. So you do need to renew your phosphor plates every now and then, but you don't have to buy one per patient per X-ray. You don't have to process any of the films, and the processing can take up to 5 minutes, between 3 and 5 minutes per X-ray, where it takes a few seconds on a phosphor plate system. And once these practices, and just recently we had an install where we replaced a completely manual system that they had archives and archives and archives of patients' data that will need to be scanned eventually, but they were still doing this year. So if they had went to phosphor plate systems like 5 years ago, they would save a lot of time, a lot of space. Record keeping is much better in digital as well, because you don't have to worry about losing patient data, especially if you're well supported by a good IT company, and you have your backups in order and all that. That's one of the big things is that, and people not realizing or being afraid of trying something digital just because it's completely different. And it's really not that different. It's the same sort of thing. It's still a film. It's still an X-ray. The OPGs and CBCTs look roughly the same. They just connect to a computer instead of giving you a piece of paper that you can look at images on. So one of the things that we do try to do is convince practices and show them with either studies that we have done or by talking to them, that's really something that it should be invested in. And again, it can be just a piecemeal where you get one thing this year and then you sort of ease into it. Maybe you don't have computers yet, or your computers are really old, so you're starting replacing your computers. And then you get into more digital workflows like the CBCT scanner, intraoral scanner, maybe 3D printer if you want to dive deep into it. But yeah, all those things are really good. And the other thing is, like you were saying, patient satisfaction. A lot of people don't have time to waste. You have 1 hour to go to an appointment, and that's all the time you have. You don't want to be sitting around because they don't have films, or the processor stopped working for some reason, or it takes a long time just to get the records. You might have gotten the wrong record because you looked at the patient's information wrong or something. So all of these things are avoided completely when you have a fully digital workflow.
I think this is the thing. I mean, as you know, I train a lot of practices, and we look very much, I like to look at things as the patient experience. What happens when a patient finds us, or even before a patient finds us? What is our brand? What are we giving out? And if we're using a digital workflow, be it from online booking to getting medical histories done on a portal, through to a check-in system, through to being able to pay online. I mean, let's face it, I think most people have become pretty antisocial given the choice now. If I can make an appointment and not have to speak to someone, pay up front and turn up and had a reminder, it's great. You don't have to speak to someone. And it's not that I'm not nice. Of course I'm nice sometimes. But it's that whole experience. And I think sometimes practices that haven't embraced the digital massively are, I don't think our patients will like it. I don't, it works fine as it is. Patients don't need it. I don't need all these fancy stuff because my dentistry is great. I think my thing is to say, do you know what? Just unknown caller. Just try it, because you will be shocked. And it doesn't mean customer service goes away, because we can still build in those fluffy bits, can't we, where the patient feels like it's a personal service. But the digital allows us more time to do those things, rather than it be used to do the clinical diagnosis and things like that. So for me, it's about the whole patient workflow right through to, the end of treatment. I find it more unusual to go into practice and not see a digital workflow. Obviously, if I do go in and there's not one, I recommend you guys, without doubt. But it used to be a nice to have thing, and it's definitely not. It's become not like that now. I think, and especially with how compliant we have to be and how regulated we are, particularly with auditing and things like that and CQC inspections, they want to see that we've got those things in place. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's the same as across the board, really, with your implant motor. Everything has a log, doesn't it? So everything has a log to prove the process that you've done. Just sort of going back to your talking about sort of why digital and how it's beneficial. I think a lot of things that the public do is out of working hours, isn't it? So it's that digital accessibility of it in the evening to make appointments, to check files. It's the same across the board, whether you're sort of setting a mortgage up or whether you're doing a treatment plan. It's all accessible out of hours because we're all busy people in our 9 to 5s. A 9 to 5 would be nice, but and to have that access early morning or evening is the same with that digital workflow as well.
Yeah. And again, just going back to the patient experience, you know, I know you guys mentioned before very much about sort of the interior design aspect, and this can be incorporated in even before the patient sat the bum in the chair, can't it? You know, it is that whole experience, and I know it is a kind of a whole turnkey system that you guys can offer, which, you know, happily we use in our practices, and I've seen a massive difference since we've been working with you. I'm not just saying that because, as people know, I don't recommend people that I won't use myself. So there's a whole, you work with lots of different manufacturers, and I'm guessing what one practice wants, somebody wants something slightly different, and you can do a bespoke plan for people depending on size of the practice and the budget and stuff like that. I know we've used you for lots of different services, most recently 2 new compressors, which, let's face it, we can't function without. Even though you know, obviously we bought some EMS machine off you guys, and then our compressors have gone, and it just brought back home to me about how you need to start with your foundations, and then you've got to have your foundations right to be able to do the nice stuff. But what manufacturers do you guys work with and offer to your clients?
Well, we I would say a majority of the market leaders, really. You've got the Vartex, you've got DERS, Axion, Plan Mecca. They all offer a different flow of, you know, options, from CBCTs, intraoral X-rays, your intraoral cameras, developers. They've all got, obviously, they all have their own ideas or their own designs. But generally, yeah, you know, we work with what I would say are the 4 of the market leaders when it comes to the digital flow. You've got the Axion, they've just recently brought out the C20 and the C50 cameras. So they give you a good option. The C20 is a bit easier to build into your chair. So rather than the desktop or mounted on cabinetry, the C20 can sit where one of your handpieces sits. DER have got, I know, a lot of history in cameras, so they've got the DER Vista Scan. Vartec have got the Easy Cam, which is quite a lightweight unit. You've got the scanners that they can offer, so you've got the DER Vista Scan. PS Fix from Axion, which you can use for 10 surgeries, so you can have that in one place within your practice, and you can reserve up to 10 surgeries so that, you know, the girls can come in and process the plates as they're going through. Plan Mecca have got the Pro Scanner, and then you just got your leading market intraoral X-rays. You've got the DER Vista Intra. Belmont do the Photex and the Bellray. You've got Vartec got the Easy Ray. They do a wall-mounted one and a handheld, which is the only handheld we do at the moment. Obviously, that sort of leads into your critical exams on more of a regular basis than your standard interest. And then, yeah, we've got W&H, hopefully at the end of this season, end of this year, releasing their whole digital range, which will be interesting to see sort of where that sits within the market. We know they've all got a very good decon history. They've done a lot of research into digital. We saw it in Cologne when we were out there. It looks very modern and very exciting, but until it's released in the UK market, we're not really going to see how it fits.
I think what makes you guys pretty special and stand out from others, you don't have an agenda of selling just one type. And I think what's nice, I know that we've come to you for scanners, we've come to you for X-ray units, we've come to you for microscopes, do microscopes, EMS machines and all of it. And I think what was nice is that you actually, and I think this is where, you know, certainly Jim and Kirsty, who've been Hague for decades, you actually get to know your customers so that you can advise them best. And I think that resonates with most people in practice, because like our patients, we want to give them options. We want them to make an informed decision, because otherwise, you know, I guess you end up with people going, well, that's not really what I wanted it for. That's not really suiting me. I don't need, you know, and it's different. You've got general dentistry through to your specialised endo or implant clinics. I'm guessing that you adjust your advice based on the need.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, you know, what Hague is, as you say, we built our relationship. It's building those relationships to start with. It's asking the right questions, and as you say, we're not just going to force you a Vartec or a Plan Mecca. We'll ask the right questions to see what each manufacturer can offer you, and allow you to make that decision on what you feel is the best. So yeah, as you say, we're not going to just push on you one manufacturer. That's why we've got a nice range throughout the market to be able to give you that choice.
Yeah, it's like, you know, a practice just wanting to sell Invisalign. It's like we should be giving different options to the patient, telling them the pros and cons of each. And I always try and liken it when we're buying things to, well, what do we do in practice? You know, what is important to us? So we working with companies that actually have that same sort of ethos is really good. So what are the potholes? What can go wrong if a practice is going, do you know what, let's go digital, and they've not done the homework? What do you find? You know, is it sometimes when owners decide they want something but haven't kind of got the whole team involved that are going to be using it, that sort of thing that can go wrong?
Yeah, that's, I'll take this one.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And a lot of times you find that the owners are looking at costs, obviously, and sometimes not really aware of what different equipments can do for them. And they've looked at a range of different CBCT scanners, and the cheapest one is the best option because it's the cheapest. And we've actually had something like this recently, where someone that doesn't really have much of a say actually is the one person that uses the machine more often for their own for not their own treatments, or treatments at that practice, and the machine doesn't actually meet the criteria this dentist needs to complete their treatments. So it was an investment that it's going to be good for some treatments, but the machine they got doesn't have an endo mode, for instance, and it was very important for this dentist in particular that it had an endo mode, and he wasn't really consulted on any of the process. It wasn't really part of any meetings or anything like that. They just thought, they said the CBCT scanner would be good. They bought a CBCT scanner, we installed it and demoed it, and then they felt disappointed because it didn't meet the criteria they needed. So it's important to keep everyone in the loop and make sure your dentist, the people that work for the practice, know what you're getting in, and because they know what they want. And it's a tool for them to be able to complete their job properly. So it's important to keep them in the loop and make sure you're getting the right thing, even if it's slightly more expensive. In the long run, it's going to be much better to have the right kit for your practice.
Yeah, no, and there are things, you know, that are there for the diagnostic improvement. You know, the intraoral cameras, you know, obviously we've got our X-ray unit and there are diagnostics, but actually I've done some experiments with, when you have an intraoral camera, for example, you know, being able to show patients what's going on in their mouth is so powerful. And it's not us trying to convince them, look, you've got a big hole there. Well, it is, I suppose, but in a way it's showing them that, you know, there's this thing, particularly with practices that have taken over a list, people that have come into a practice, they're kind of patients are very sort of cautious if a new person's come in and they're saying, oh, well, you know, well, why have you found this now? And that is a conversation that definitely needs to be managed. But we can demonstrate. I remember a practice owner took over a new practice a few years ago and said, I need you to come in. My reviews are awful. All the patients hate me. And it's like, well, yeah, because, you know, this person that they've been seeing for 20 odd years before, you're not them. So it's going to be different. And he said, I'll pay you whatever you want, come in and help. And I said, save your money, buy an intraoral camera, then come and talk to me if that doesn't work. And he come back to me a few months later and said, oh my goodness, I can't believe, and I, you know, I was really pleased, you know, yeah, did myself out of a job, obviously. But for him to be able to demonstrate to patients what's going on in the mouth is so much more powerful than somebody just saying it. And I think this is the whole part of patients want to be involved in their consultations down the deeper level now. And these digital workflows do help us, obviously, to do that. I know I have come across practices where patients are, you know, you get a new piece of equipment, and if the practice isn't talking to the patients about why they've got this, you get comments such as, oh, well, I bet I'm paying for that new piece of equipment. Great. And it's like, no, we need to tell patients why we're using these tools. So for me, we think it's fantastic that we are investing into something that's out there that's going to help us care for you better. And I think, I mean, you guys are quite techie, aren't you? So yeah, you know what? And that's absolutely normal. And the go-to with when we buy equipment, I think, is we want to tell patients, oh, and this is this, and it does this, and it does that. And I think what you guys also do an added layer of is the patient experience. You recognize it, and it's like we're telling patients, you know, they're not interested in what type of, you know, scanner it is and all of those techie details. They actually want to know what difference is it going to make to their treatment. How are they going to feel? Is it more comfortable? Is it quicker? All the things, you know, we've touched on. And I think that's, for you guys to recognize that, I do think that's different than many other companies that are just trying to sell us a piece of equipment, because it does come with that extra support. So training wise, if you are putting some new equipment into a practice, what does that look like?
We usually involve as many people as the practice can get involved on the day. It's usually be the principal dentist, the people that are using the X-ray, and as many nurses as possible that can be there on the day. And we go through the whole workflow depending on how much of the workflow they bought. And yeah, we just do a lot of demos. Same thing. This goes for digital and everything else they buy. Really,
Yeah.
we usually do a full handover of every single piece of kit in the practice. It takes a few hours. And sometimes we have breaks and things like that. And CBCT training is the thing that takes the longest. But we actually have a human skull we use as a phantom to take scans on. So when I go out to do training, we can do 10, 20, 30, 50 CBCTs on different areas. And we can look at all of those images immediately without just me showing them how to position a patient roughly. We can actually position a patient and take some scans on a patient or someone that used to be a patient in this case. But I think I find it really useful, and people usually come away knowing a lot more about the equipment and being much more comfortable on their first use, which can be a little bit scary sometimes when dentists are about to take their first CBCT. And they worry about all the regulations and if all the training they had on their CT interpretation, and they go back into that. And sometimes they're sort of walking on eggshells a bit when you're going in to take that first one. So if we do a really good demo and we give them enough space to practice on the Phantom, then usually it's a better experience for everyone involved and for the patient as well, because people can notice if you're using something for the first time, and that makes them worry, and people are already wary about x-rays most of the time. So if you're comfortable, the patient's going to be more comfortable, and overall it's just going to be better for everyone.
Do dentists, in my experience, not many dentists take x-rays. They train their nurses to be able to do it and send them off on radiography courses. In my practice, none of my dentists will take x-rays. They can, obviously, but it's like the nurses are so much better at it. Yeah, obviously, yeah. Appropriately trained. Yeah, you don't just let them take x-rays. So pretty much all the digital introductions that we can have in practice, they do generally integrate with our software, because that's obviously a big issue in some places.
It is. One of the things, and I wanted to touch on that earlier, is when we do sort of a piecemeal digital footprint in your practice, we will look at what else you have in the practice already, and we'll try our best to make everything compatible. So if you already have a CCT machine that maybe we wouldn't work with, we'll try to integrate our software into your software that's already existing, so you don't have fragmented databases. Then you have to be looking at 2 different softwares for the same patient record, or we integrate into your general PMS software like Dentally, Exam Pro, whatever else you may be using. So we really try to go out of our way to make sure the user experience is the best possible, even if you're adamant you really want to keep hold of your really old database for some reason. We'll try to make it work. We'll find a way. And a lot of companies are now providing the possibility of transferring databases across to newer systems, which is really good. So you can migrate a really old database of all your historic patients from a really old scanner into your new Vatek or Dentally, Vatek or Remexis software or anything like that. So I think going into the future, well, hopefully most companies will do this. You can just change from device to device, which should be right. You shouldn't have to be having multiple different databases across all your systems. So we try our best when we can do that.
Yeah. Well, one thing we've not really touched on, which for me is pretty important, and I know for many practices it's something that is becoming quite a priority, is the CSR, the environmental impact, and it can have on switching to digital. As practices, we have a lot of waste, don't we? We have a lot of single-use items, which is ridiculous. So we're already generating and using a lot of things that aren't particularly environmentally friendly, and some of which we can't help. It's just one of them things, but obviously the digital workflow does tick that box quite well, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, it does. You're saving on, especially if going back to our film example, the savings on that alone in terms of environmental impact are immense, because you don't have lead around each of the films. You're not recycling films. You're not recycling the liquids that you use for processing. So I think, yeah, in that sense, it's a lot better. They consume less power because you're not heating up a whole vat of liquid to process the images. So overall, it's much better. Same thing with the scans, because we don't need a whole workflow of lab equipment just to be able to take impressions and mold them and then go put them through the plastic, I forget the name now, but you know what I mean. Where you can do everything with one single machine and a computer, and there's no waste. Everything is in file somewhere.
No,
so
well, we have to do our bit, and I think offsetting actually how much waste we do create as practices, if we can do a little bit that is helping reduce that, I think personally, I think that's a massive bonus. I've had a few questions sent in, so I'm going to do quick fire. I can see Lee trembling. It's all right, Lee. Not bad. They're all right. You're really good. The thing is, I've never come across anyone that knows the stuff like you, Lee. I don't know why you get nervous.
I put the pressure on me now.
I just didn't.
I think it's just me. Maybe I just scare you. You did really well. The guys joined us on a panel in Manchester for one of the dental shows, and you were absolutely brilliant. You did so well.
Thank you. It was nerve-wracking.
But I'm going to do, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through a few Q&A things that have been sent in, because I mean, all of the digital stuff is amazing and really love it. But obviously, what you guys do as well is you do the normal stuff as well, very, very well. The chairs, the servicing, all of those bits, which I am, you know, I'll be honest, you know, we were with somebody for many years and it was not quite what it used to be. And obviously, you know, we decided as you moved up north, it was practical for us to move over to you. And it's, you know, it's for practices, it's sometimes a bit scary. It's bet the devil you know sometimes situation if it's not broke. But I've got to say, I've blown away, and I'm a tough customer. I've been blown away. You guys literally would bend over backwards to help when we're in a mess. You know, be it some piece of equipment, the chair goes down, the suction goes, your compressor pretty much blows up, which did happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from the experience we've got as a company and understanding how that affects you as a practice. You know, as you say, your compressors went. You know, with most dental chairs and some of your decom equipment, your assistines and things like, you can't work without compressed air. So, you know, that is your main piece of equipment that is going to get you working on a daily basis. So yeah, that's, you know, it's, you know, not blowing our own trumpet, but that's what we do as a company, and that's how we've always been. As James says, I've been here 15 years, and that's been the ethos from day one since I joined. You know, Jim's always been like that. James has always been like that. Everybody is like that, where we will do our best and our utmost to keep you working.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's always treat for us. It's always treat the customer how you'd want to be treated, and that is basically how it should be for us. So
Yeah, and it does show. It does genuinely, you know, credit absolutely where it's due. And for me, as a practice manager, using a company that has got them values pays off. You know, it really does. Like I say, this isn't me selling you guys. This is me genuinely, you know, we use you, and we've been really, really impressed. And I think what really impressed me was, you know, was it about a year ago, and you guys invited me to HQ to talk to all your engineers about the life of a practice manager and why we're sometimes a bit cranky and why we're quite demanding. And you took on board actually, you know, what our challenges are, so you could try to be empathetic to those challenges and not just think we're being a nightmare, which I'm sure we are sometimes.
for us and the engineers, it's the need to know how you work on the, you know, the stresses you go through on a daily basis. The engineers will come in, and yes, they'll be under a certain amount of stress because there's time constraints, the pressure to get you back up and running and things like that. So it's getting them to understand your side of it, and where you're coming from and the stresses that you're under from your patients, from your dentists, you know, potentially your bosses and things like that, to get you back up and running. So if you all know, and I guess some of the conversation is you understanding where the engineers are coming from, but if you all get the same conversation, you're all sort of at the same goal, it makes for that smoother journey at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways that some of your guys were kind of like not aware of was, you know, the pressure that many practices are under from January to the end of March, you know, that last UDA quarter, when every day counts, every second counts if they've got to hit their target or get a massive amount of money clawed back. So when something goes down in those 3 months, you know, how much more important it is to be able to get something done really quickly. I mean, I know that a couple of you guys, I know you literally drove, what, 4 hours late to save us one day?
Yeah, about 4.5 hours.
But you know, that's one way, and then you've got to go back, you know, and for me, that is remarkable, and it isn't the norm. I'm going to go through a couple of the Q&As if it's okay. Guys that are on the call, if you have a specific question that you want to ask the guys about anything, equipment, or anything to do with digital workflow or servicing, maintenance, please, you know, feel free to ask the question if you want to. Take your camera off or just unmute, interrupt us. I'll go through some of the questions, and some of them may be what you wanted to learn about. But if there's something else, please speak up. Or if you don't want to speak up, you can come back to us after, and I'm sure the guys will answer any questions that you've got specific. So one of the things that's come in, and I can't believe that, you know, sometimes this is still being asked, how often should we be getting annual servicing done? I'm guessing this is about chairs, maybe, or
I mean, we can cover sort of chairs because digital is the same, to be honest, from an annual servicing perspective. So it is annually, but then with the X-rays, one thing to touch on with CBCT is the critical exams. So the critical exam and the acceptance reporting for the CBCTs and the intraorals. Intraorals are 3 yearly, but then with the CBCTs, it is annually. But a way to sort of save a bit of money with that is when you purchase your CBCT, you purchase their QA tool. So I think, is it monthly, Artur?
Yeah.
So on a monthly basis, you do your own QA on the CBCT, and then that moves your critical exams back to 3 yearly, the same as your intraorals. But that is an internal process you have to handle.
Just one point on that. If you have a handheld X-ray,
yeah.
You always have a critical exam every year, or a routine survey. Some people call them different things. But the paperwork that goes back to your RPA, instead of 3 years, even if it's just a 2D intraoral handheld X-ray, that has to be done every year. But it's always important to consult your RPA for advice, even though these are the general guidelines. Some RPAs might have different views on what the practice recruitment needs, depending on what rooms they have and what's next to those rooms.
Yeah. So you guys obviously are very up to date on your compliance. You understand what compliance we should be, our mandatory compliance. But there's also the non-mandatory, the guidance, which it's a no-brainer to not just tick the boxes of what has to be done. It's about looking after this investment, isn't it? So looking after it, making sure the staff are trained to use it properly, making sure that it's looked after and maintained, but also getting services to make sure that it's not going to break down.
Absolutely. There's, like you said, there's the governance around it, which is sort of led by your RPA, which when you're installing an X-ray, your RPA needs to be sort of alerted immediately as to what you're doing. And then obviously, especially with CBCT, they will need to be consulted throughout with regards to what needs to be done to the room. But then absolutely, like you say, there's a lot of longevity of the equipment is the annual servicing, which we can support on both elements.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So if a practice has got some digital equipment, maybe an OPG machine, and want to upgrade, is that something you can help with? is there any such thing as like part exchange, or how does that work?
Different manufacturers run different promotions, really. So we kind of led by what they do. Vartec have sort of on and off offered like a part exchange for an old OPG. What they're currently offering actually is if you purchase 2D machine, if you upgrade within 2 years, there's 100% buyback on that machine as well. So if you want to dip your toe into the water with 2D, but in your head you know, I'm probably going to want 3D within a couple of years, that's a really good option to sort of look at. So yeah, it tends to be we're led by the manufacturers on what promotions they offer.
Brilliant.
Just come and, if there is no promotion, as a company, we can come and take the old machine away, dispose of it the right way, and obviously fit the new one. So.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So I've been to Hague HQ. It's absolutely lovely setup. I think you've got to do your timing right. Am I right to think it's sausage rolls one day and a full fry up on a Friday or something?
Lucky on a Friday morning, you get a nice fry up when you come in the showroom.
Love it, love it. But you know, obviously you've got demos. People can come to the showroom, and it doesn't feel like a showroom. It just feels just amazing. It's like I think it's like, you know, a kid in a sweet shop if a dentist comes to Hague, literally just want to buy everything.
Yeah, well, to say the showroom's set up in a way where, you know, if there's a product you want, be it a chair, pump, compressor, we've got it physically on show. You can get your hands on it. You can sit on it, especially with the chairs. They're all plumbed into compressed air. You can test the hand pieces. You can move the chair. You can operate the light. You can see what it's like to move ambidextrous. We've got OPGs up in the digital bit, so you can come and physically see how big they are, you know, what they feel like to stand under, and you know, sometimes they can be quite imposing pieces of kit. So if you've got a smaller room, you can kind of see what options we've got, and you can physically see it in the showroom. So it makes life a little bit easier when you're choosing which one you want.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and it's Horsham that you're based in, isn't it? But
Yeah.
will there be plans for a showroom a bit further up north at some point?
Watch this space.
Exciting.
We have got a hub in Newark, so we've got an office space in Newark that we're using at the moment. Obviously, at the moment, that's kind of a hub for the Midland engineers, stock rotation and things like that. But yeah, you know, if we're honest, the plan is to grow that area and grow it properly.
There are plans drawn up of a showroom for that unit, so you've always got to think, obviously, a few years ahead. So yeah, we've got the space. What we do with it, like Lee said, at the moment it's a hub, parts, small equipment. But yeah, watch this space.
No, it's brilliant, and I think, you know, you can see that you've got the right team. You know, I know each and every one of you specialises in your own area, which is brilliant. You know, it's not just one person that's telling people how to do things. And I know the engineer that looks after us, you know, he's so wonderful. Nothing is ever too much trouble. And I just think that is the company value, isn't it? You know, I know the customer.
Yeah, I think it's you know, we kind of not vet them, but when we're doing searches or employing new engineers, we want to make them, you know, they have to have the right values. They need to kind of work with the Hague ethic. You know, I've been engineers in other places, and this industry is different on its own. You know, the work pressures, the hours, the travelling, so many different pieces of equipment that you have to kind of learn and have knowledge in. Is a lot more than I've ever seen before. So yeah, it's for us, it's getting the right engineers, and you know, they have to fit in. So
No,
yeah, and
definitely.
also just to build up on that, we don't really get engineers. One new engineer in today, and tomorrow he's out doing jobs on his own. They'll spend quite a lot of time with the senior engineers, going to practices, just shadowing, just to make sure they have the right attitude towards customers, towards the job, towards everything. And they're pretty much an exact match of everyone else. So you can get me coming in today, or Jose, or someone else, and you'll have the same experience overall across the board with all our engineers.
That's it. You know, it needs to, you need to be, you know, calibrated, don't you? You know, I know, you know, other practices where they've had certain companies, it's like can I only work with such and such engineer because they didn't like one of the other ones, or the other one wasn't deemed as good. And you can understand that, can't you? But why not make sure that you're all at a really good standard, which is what obviously you guys do, which is great. But yeah, is there anything else that, you know, we can offer to our customers? I think, you know, genuinely, hopefully I've you know, got across that you are a really great company to work with. We came to you for servicing, and I think we've bought 3 chairs, a microscope, an EMS, 2 new compressors. It's that, and genuinely, it is wonderful to be able to go to one company and go help instead of having to go and source things. And I for one know what I'm getting from you guys, which is, you know, that's priceless.
excellent.
I've made you all shy now, haven't I? Kind of like,
Well, it's for us, it's where we've grown into a bigger company. It's still maintaining that engineer around the corner mentality as well. So, and that's what the engineers are like. They all have personal mobiles that they can be contacted on. All our numbers are available, email addresses. Everyone is available at most times in the day. And it's maintaining that small business mentality, but as the size of company we are. So
yeah, no, good on you. Honestly, I think it's brilliant seeing you go from strength to strength, and it just gets it gets better and better. Could not recommend you highly enough, as we do, you know, and we really appreciate you guys working with Adam, the relationship and recognition that, you know, you want to help support practice managers by doing these sort of things just speaks volumes for your values. And, you know, it does mean a lot to practice managers, because we do feel sometimes that we are the dog's bodies and we are the unsung heroes. So just to get that recognition of companies like yourself and support is absolutely fantastic. Does anyone have any questions before we disappear? I believe you guys will probably be back in a couple of months, and we'll be talking about another aspect of equipment. There'll be all sorts new, won't there? So anybody can contact Adam to get in touch with Hague, contact Hague directly. If anyone's got any questions, please do let us know. And generally you guys are at quite a lot of the shows, so we're popping over to say hello and letting them know that you're an Adam member would be fantastic. I'm sure you'll get a cup of tea or something.
There's always refreshments available.
Always. I was going to say, I couldn't remember whether you guys were giving beer away once, and it was like,
I can't imagine Lee giving the beer away.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Thank you for those that joined us, and anybody that's listening, you know, please do get in touch. There is no hard sell behind the guys and the support that they give to Adam. It's just genuinely building really good relationships, and giving a shout out to the good guys, you know, that help support us in practice. So thank you to Sam from Adam for organising the webinar, and hopefully there's some bits of information in there that everyone can take away. And next time you're going to make a purchase or consider making a purchase, you know, just speak to Hague. I promise you wouldn't regret it. Thank you guys, you've done brilliant.
Thank you.
Really lovely to talk to you, and I'll see you soon.